So what is virtual presence and how can you maximize and elevate yours? Well, your virtual presence is how you engage, collaborate, lead, inspire others, motivate others in your virtual world. And there are a couple of things that each and every one of us can be doing as our virtual worlds and our hybrid worlds continue to expand. So if we're looking at being on camera, please remember that you want the camera of your computer screen to be eye level with you. So while now I'm looking into the video camera, if I'm on a Zoom call or a WebEx call or a Microsoft Teams call or whatever platform you use, I want to be looking into my computer camera. That's synonymous with looking at you. You want as much light in front of you as possible because we want to see you. We don't want you to look like a cardboard cutout or like you're in the witness protection program. And then think about your background. Now, I have a unique background today because I'm actually in Johannesburg, South Africa, visiting my mother. And so I've chosen this beautiful garden background. But if you use a virtual background, make sure it's not too distracting. And then be intentional about really connecting with people virtually. So for my seminars, workshops, keynotes on how to elevate your virtual presence, please go onto my website, nadiaspeaks.com.
Reaves, I am so delighted to have you join me today. And I was so excited to show you how seamless I was with my production, and then I wasn't so seamless. But that video was around our virtual and hybrid worlds, which is so pandemic. But you, as a global sales, I like to say guru, trainer, global phenomenon in the area of sales, is going to share what we can do post-pandemic to ensure that our sales teams are equipped.
You know, Nadia, it's an interesting world now. We thought we might be going back all live, and then we look at hybrid, and then we look at going virtual again. The principles of sales remain the same regardless of how we're communicating. However, the techniques and processes do need to change. And one of the things that I see you doing is helping people put their presence out there, either virtually or in person, because behind the presence are the words. But if people don't like what they are seeing, they are unlikely to listen to our message. Let's face it, presence is everything. So let's talk about sales, shall we?
So talking about sales, yes.
I want to talk about 3 points. I want to stress the last one, which is post-pandemic selling. But first of all, everyone knows everyone is in sales. But let's take that a little bit differently. Everyone is in sales because we have to sell ourselves in order to get a job. We have to sell our ideas in order to move up in the organization. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about contributing to your organization's top line and bottom line. What is your role in sales in your organization? If you're a leader, if you're a department head, if you're a manager, what is the role of the people that you influence in generating revenue or preserving revenue? I had an opportunity when I was selling for AT&T. I had a 6-figure sale on the West Coast. I lived in Atlanta. My boss lived in New York. So the two of us flew out to the West Coast, had dinner the night before, and we went out to sign the contract for this huge sale. And the client was sitting at the head of his conference table. His arms were folded and he was scowling. I said, "How's your day going?" He said, "A green truck cut me off this morning." The logo on the back door of that truck was the same as the logo on my business card. So there's some truck driver somewhere that almost ruined a major sale for me. So everyone is in sales. Everyone has the opportunity to influence a customer's buy, no buy decision. Second point, sales is a science, not an art. We hear people say, well, he's a born salesperson. He has the gift of gab. In today's world, post-pandemic, the gift of gab will kill you. Customers don't want to be lectured. Customers want to be sold. They want to feel special. And what happened during the pandemic is many buyers figured out just how good and robust this internet thing is. So today, prior to the pandemic, some changes were happening, but the response to the pandemic, not the pandemic itself, the response to the pandemic accelerated those changes. Prior to the pandemic, many buyers were better at buying than salespeople were at selling. Today, many buyers are better at selling than salespeople are. When we go online to buy something, we're a buyer. And we're following the science of selling when we go to a website like Amazon, when we go to any portal where there's purchasing power. So you go to Amazon to buy something. By the way, my granddaughter said the other day, our next door neighbors are rich. I said, well, how do you know they're rich? They get a box from Amazon every day. That's become the new standard for them. That's what it's all about. So let's say you go to Amazon, you're going to buy something. You pick an object that you want to buy, and you Google that, or you put it in the search window, and all the options show up. Mm-hmm. And you start doing a feature benefit analysis. This is something sales professionals are supposed to do. And so you look at the different objects. This one has these features. This one has that one. This one has that one. Then we start looking at the price. And then we might look at delivery and some other aspects. Price is never the real reason why the customer said no. I have a number of Chuckisms. You can see them at chuckreaves.online. But Chuckism number 6 is the most popular. It says, in the history of recorded time, no customer has ever said your price is too high and meant it. And there's a scientific process behind selling that prevents the customer from raising the price objection. There's a type of selling that's been around for a while called value-added selling. It went to the next level post-pandemic. And what we're looking at now are things like blended selling and consultative selling and collaborative selling, a lot of different ways of approaching the customer. And what we're finding is, as people have used the internet more and become more comfortable with it, buyers know more about the seller than the seller knows about the buyer.
So Chuck, let's just unpack that for a moment. So if you've just joined us, I'm talking to probably one of the world's most sought after sales trainers and speakers. So Chuck, this is the Chuck Reaves Masterclass. You saying, particularly during the pandemic when people were forced to buy online, and just repeat what you said, because I think it is so critical for every single person who's in sales. And as you say, one way or another, we're all in sales.
Yes, everyone is in sales, not only selling yourself, but selling your company's products and services, selling your company's image. And because they were spending time online, shopping around, and interviewing us online, they probably did more buying than we did selling. Think about it. A salesperson may make 10 sales calls in a week. A professional buyer may see 10 salespeople in a day. So they have more practice and they're picking up what we're doing. I'll give you an example. A CEO asked me to participate in a sales call. It was him and his VP of sales. It was a major opportunity and they wanted me there. So we went into the customer's office and sat down. We established rapport. We always establish rapport. We build a relationship. Relationship selling is a redundant term. All selling is relationship selling. Companies don't do business with companies. People do business with people. So we establish rapport. And then as I had taught them, they use their opening question. The opening question is a specific tool that we use to transition from establishing rapport into the sales call. Whoever asks the opening question takes initial control of the sales call. So the VP of sales brought up this opening question, and it was obvious to everybody in the room, we're about to start selling. At that point, the customer reached down behind his desk and pulled up a laminated card, and he said, these are the 5 essential ways of selling. Which one are you going to use on me today? The buyers are so much more sophisticated now. They have access to more information. There's a Chuckism that says the person at the table who knows the most about the other person's business wins. one of the reasons you and I have been friends for so long is we come from two completely different worlds. And when we had those rare opportunities to have lunch together, a cup of coffee together, you would talk about the broadcast industry. I would talk about the training and sales industry. And because of that, even though they're very disparate subjects or industries, both of us learned and both of us came away better. That's what it's really all about. The price objection is rarely valid. However, the customer knows better now, post-pandemic, how to raise the price objection. It used to be the customer would say, well, I can get the same thing for less. And we could say, oh, no, we're the only one that has this feature, this benefit, this service level. And the buyers now can go online while we're talking to them and say, no, look, your competitor has it as well. So we're dealing with a very sophisticated buyer. At the same time, we have to come up with what's called a sales process methodology, an SPM. It's like a recipe, so that we follow this recipe on every sales call. Every sales call is different. Every customer is different. Every customer is different on subsequent sales calls. So they're not exactly the same, but we follow the recipe. And by doing that, we keep our sales message on track. Customers try to distract us. If I ask the customer, what's your top 3 criteria for buying my product or service, they'll say price, price, and price. Well, that's not true. I need to find some way of differentiating myself from everyone else. Watching what's happening post-pandemic, we're finding that technology is accelerating, I believe, exponentially. Remember when we came up with death by PowerPoint? PowerPoints were so boring, people would go to sleep during the PowerPoint. Well, now there is depth, D-E-P-T-H, depth by PowerPoint. So that we can put a PowerPoint, this is what I'm doing, I put a PowerPoint on my tablet. If we're at lunch, I can let the customer see it. Or if I'm in their conference room, we can present it on a screen behind me. And I'll go through 1 or 2 slides, kind of doing an introduction and framing the day. And then a slide comes up with 8, 16, 24 different icons on it. And I look at the customer and say, here are 24 topics we could talk about. Which one would you like to discuss first? And they take control of the sales call. You see, the buyer is better at selling than the salesperson is. So why don't we direct the way they sell? And of course, one of those icons is going to be price. And I put it further down, but they're not really that interested in price. Maybe the first one is quality. And so they touch quality. And a feature built into PowerPoint, I just start advancing the slides and we talk about the quality of our product or service. And when I'm through talking about it and the last slide is over, it automatically goes back to that grid, 16 topics. When the customer feels like, notice the word, feels like, they're in control of the sales call, they're more likely to buy from us because they see greater validity in the message. We have to do a cost justification. The one you want to buy is $500. The one I'm trying to sell is $600. So you want to see $100 difference. And I can talk about features and benefits, or I can put a calculator in front of you now and ask you to put your numbers in the calculator. I can't see it. You just put your numbers in there and you run it. Is our cost lower than the other vendor's cost? Not price, cost. We don't sell on price, we sell on cost. Customers do not buy on price, they buy on cost. But because us salespeople have not been very good at cost justification, customers have figured out, I'll just beat them up on price and they'll lower their price and everybody wins. They get the sale, my company saves some money, and I'm a hero in my organization. I'll give you an example. I worked with an organization and the CEO called and said, I want you to come work with my salespeople again. It's kind of like getting a second date with the same girl in high school. Never happened to me, but maybe some of your listeners. So I went back and they had this new technology. All of their salespeople would leave this conference with the latest generation iPad. And on this iPad, there was one icon. That icon was their app, their proprietary app. And what it did, Nadia, it reduced a portion of their sales process from 3 weeks to 3 minutes. from 3 weeks to 3 minutes. 40% of their business is in disaster recovery. Now imagine going to a plant that has some kind of an incident and they've lost 20% of their capacity, and 2 vendors come in and can get them up and running again. One vendor can have them up and running 3 weeks earlier than the other one. Which one are they going to go with? So I showed this, they showed it to me. They had to prove to me the thing worked before I would go convince their salespeople to use it. And unfortunately, this was a very mature sales team. I'll be more explicit. I had the darkest hair in the room. I mean, these guys have been around forever. I met up at dinner with them the night before, and one of them came up to me and he said, "I heard you speak last time and got me one of them smartphone things." And he flipped it open. I thought, you know, he's on the technology track. Let's don't try to derail the guy.
Exactly. Chuck, I want to make sure that you're looking absolutely into your camera, because I am seeing, and I want to make sure that everybody is seeing all of you. So can you go that way a little bit? Yes, much better. Thank you. It's just, I want everybody to see you and hear you in full view. Chuck, on that note about your phone, who would have thought? We're talking about, if you're just joining us, sales in a post-pandemic world, which is quite hopeful because some would believe we're still in the pandemic world. But Chuck, who would have thought you could press a few buttons and get 10 pairs of socks delivered to your house the next day, right?
Yes.
You've probably been speaking about this before it happened, right? I remember having conversations with you and thinking, this is never going to happen. And everything you have predicted has in fact happened. I remember talking to you 18 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, and you said you are going to be able to walk into a store and the store will know what you bought before and then recommend things to you, right?
Yes.
So you have been somewhat of a clairvoyant when it's come to sales.
Retail technology, which is B2C primarily, is accelerating at the same rate as B2B technology, except B2B is more sophisticated because of its depth. But it's possible now for you to walk down the aisle in a grocery store, and they're doing this in some places, and as you pass some merchandise, a light flashes, you turn, and a coupon spits out. You bought this last time, why don't you buy it again now?
But how is that possible?
It's what?
How is that possible? Are they reading your phone? Is Big Brother watching? How is it actually technically possible?
RFID, AI, AR, there are so many technologies now. In fact, there was a time when I believe it was Walmart insisted that all of their vendors put a chip in their product instead of the barcode, because it was so much faster to have the barcodes. You wouldn't even need to have a checkout stand. There are stores in Japan, for instance, you put your stuff in the cart and you roll out to the car and put it in your car, because everything in there has a chip.
The Amazon store in New York.
Yes.
You put your credit card in as you go in. I was there during Halloween, actually, and you literally put your credit card in as you walk in, and you take the stuff off the shelf and you walk out and you don't pay, and it's just somehow added up.
Yes. Now take that same
concept. Is that going to be the future?
Take the same concept, not the same technology, same concept into B2B. Who needs the salesperson? My clients are now putting strata on their product lines or their service levels or something, so that if a sale is below a certain threshold, we don't make a face-to-face call. We don't even make a virtual call. We do it all via digital. And then if it's a little bit larger, maybe we'll do a virtual. But only if it's a large sale will we do a face-to-face call, because that's the way the customers want it. Anything that we can buy online and feel reasonably certain that we're going to be happy with it, we buy online. We just replaced light fixtures over the weekend, and we had 2 options, and one of them had a couple of comments that said the units arrived broken or some of them didn't work. And the first thing we looked for was easy return. Can we just send them right back? So what is the customer in the B2B world looking for now? What assurances do they want? I had a call earlier today, and a gentleman said, well, what would it cost to have you come in and train my salespeople? And my answer was nothing. If your sales don't go up or your profits don't go up more than my fee, I'll give you the feedback. This is an investment. In business, people want to know the outcome. The key word for 2022, for 2021 and 2022 is the word outcome. B2B salespeople need to start with, what is this customer's desired outcome? What are they trying to achieve? And how can I help them achieve it?
So how do you go into an organization? How does one even begin to shift the mindset of individuals? I know you can't share all of your process here because I want people to reach out to you afterwards, but for people who are watching, who are going, this makes so much sense, but how?
Okay, excellent question, and I hear this frequently. I answer with a riddle. How many psychiatrists does it take to change a light bulb? And the answer is one, but only if the light bulb wants to change.
That's a good
If a
one.
seasoned salesperson wants to play the new game, I'm a seasoned salesperson. I'm enjoying playing the new game. So if they want to play the new game, we can teach them. But if they want to sell the same old way, and there's quite a few of them that I've run into, and unfortunately, Nadia, many of them have been at the management and executive level. There's still people who want to go out on a sales call with a bag of donuts and a cigar. That doesn't work anymore. So how do we
Especially
learn
if you're
to
sharing the cigar if it's post-pandemic?
Yes. So when we look at what tools or capabilities do I need to best serve my company, or what tools or techniques or processes do I need to best outdo my competitor? But here's another one. What tools or processes do I need to give to my customer so that my customer can sell more to their customer? It's called supply chain selling. I don't sell to, I sell through. Now, as a sales trainer, of course I do that. I help my customers sell more to their customers. But can my customers help their customers sell more to their customers? And we start looking at the relationships inside the supply chain. Everyone knows what the supply chain is now. Pre-pandemic, some people were unaware there even was a supply chain. All you have to do is disrupt it like it's been disrupted, and people are saying, wow, I had no idea it was that complex. There are acres of trucks, acres of pickup trucks waiting for a chip. We're going to look at, how do we go forward? If I always do what I've always done, I'll have less than I've ever had before. The old game is over. Technologies are changing, processes are changing, demographics are changing. The economy is changing. We have no idea what's going to happen to the economy and which sectors are going to be hit. So now we can't go into the world of sales, the world of buyers, with the same old story, the same old routine, the same old tools, and think we're going to succeed. That's why I like having touchscreen laptops and tablets. We can put something on it, and when we're talking to the customer, we give them the laptop, we give them the tablet. What would you like to talk about? You go ahead and punch it, and we will talk about that. They have, one of my clients sells decks. So if you want a deck on the back of your house, and you know how the carpenters are, they show up in a pickup truck on coveralls and they talk about it. What he does, his salespeople go out with an iPad, take a picture of the back of the house where the deck is going to be, and they sit down with the client and start drawing a picture of the deck. And as they draw the picture of the deck, the materials list begins to build. And as the material list builds, red flags come up. You've extended this board 16 feet. It will need 3 supports instead of 2, so you need to add another 2 before. And all this stuff is done automatically. And inevitably, the customer adds more deck. They add more stairs. They add more railings. And get this. Once the customer says, that looks good, and they see the price, that looks good, let's go for it. The customer signs on the screen, and the salesperson hits the green button, and back at the plant, they start cutting lumber and loading it on a truck. They can actually start building the deck a few hours after the customer decides they want to buy it. And somehow there are people who think a bag of donuts and a dirty joke is going to be the right way to open a sales call. It isn't. This is a fascinating time to be in sales. Want to add one more layer to it? Cognitive recognition. I mean, this is your whole life, Nadia. You understand how you present yourself so that the other person recognizes or sees the image, the factors that you want them to see. So it's eye contact, it's the smile, it's the body language. Now we have to be conscious of that in person and virtually. It's different virtually, but we still have to be conscious of it.
Chuck,
Anyway.
I'm monitoring the chat, and Mark Angelos, who is a dear friend and marketing guru extraordinaire, says most companies have no idea how to sell through the modern tools. So Chuck, when you work with an organization and you're talking about these so-called modern tools, not a donut and not a cigar, do you help the company build the modern tools, or do you identify the need? And then you mentioned, how do you do this virtually?
Wow, what a good question. Okay, first of all, we identify the need. And we identify the need based on outcome. If you had this tool, what would you be able to do with it? Sell better, faster, at a lower cost. Then I would like to teach them how to build the tools. My goal is always to work myself out of a job. So as I do things, I teach them how to do it. Now, there are clients who say, you just do it for us. Excuse me. And sometimes I have to bring in contractors for that, but I would rather teach them. And the way these tools work, I leave the office and I've got my 18 or 16 or 24 icons on my laptop. And I go out and sit down with the customer, and the customer wants to talk about our lean capabilities. Have we implemented lean or Six Sigma or ISO or something? They want to know about that.
And just explain that to people who are unfamiliar.
Oh, it's a quality standard. We want to be better, faster, and lower cost today than we were yesterday. So I've got an icon there that says ISO or Six Sigma or something. When they touch it and the information comes up, I'm seeing it for the first time.
Right.
Because after I left the office, one of our quality experts found some information and updated that information, and they put it into that deck so that when I access it, the new information is there. The idea that the customer could ask a question and we would say, I don't know, I'll get back to you on that. It's a deal breaker. You should have that information right there on your phone, on your tablet, on some device. We can have on these, with this technology, I don't do numbers. I'm a sales guy. I don't do numbers. I have to have help with CPAs and people like that. But I could have my CFO or the other people in my accounting department put together slides that explain different things: ROI, TCO, return on investment, total cost of ownership, cost of waiting, COW. And they could put those calculators in my presentation. I can't do that. They can do it. And then if the customer operates one of the calculators and they say, well, what algorithm did you use for that? I don't know that. We touch a button. There's the algorithm. There's so much information. We left the information age a long time ago. We went through the
all
information.
of that, Chuck, with all of what you're saying and technology, and there's still place for the salesperson to tune into what the other person's saying. I mean, all of this technology will still not replace the intelligence of somebody who shows you, who greets you, who knows which button to press, right?
Yes, yes.
I mean, are we going to be replaced fully by technology?
No, we'll never replace the human touch. You know that, and I know that. The reason I said relationship selling is a redundant term is because all selling is relationship selling. What will the salesperson build the relationship on? If they build it on technology, the next vendor to come along with better technology is going to take the customer away from you.
Right.
If you build it on price, somebody with a lower price is going to take it away from you. So what you and I and most of your listeners have learned is you build the relationship on something that is of value to the customer. So we have the personality profiles like DISC or Myers-Briggs. And I know that if they're very detail-oriented, I'm going to build the relationship as detailed as I can, giving them the kind of information they really want. If they're a type A personality, I'm going to immediately get down to work. Thank you for your time. Let's talk about why we're here. So we build that relationship based on who they are. Computers can't do that.
Right.
The computer cannot sense body
And it's
language.
the same with you. I mean, when you're going into a customer and you are saying to them, do you want the technology? Some want to learn how to do it themselves, and some are going to say, just build it and show me when it's done.
Well, I won't do that. What I will do is build it, show it to them when it's done, and insist that they learn to use it.
Right.
Why would we spend our time developing a tool that people don't know how to use? This idea that technology can accelerate what we are doing, that it can augment what we're doing, that's what we're talking about. Can't replace what we are doing. It's trying to think of an example recently where you can go to the customer and say, we have 24 volts on pin 16 in our Niederreuss. The customer could care less, but if they're an engineer, that's very important to them. So how do we know how to give the customer what is of most interest to them? That's one of the things that's
selling cars for a moment. I mean, what you're saying is for Porsche, somebody walks in, no longer does the salesperson have to know every single aspect, but they need to determine what they show the individual. Because you're going to get some people who, you know, at Porsche, the famous line is, there is no substitute. There's some people who are just into the image and want to know what the car will look like with different colors. And the people who want to know the engine and how it's going to work. So so you're saying training your salespeople has changed.
Oh, gosh, yes.
You still have to have product knowledge, but you also have to know where to access the product knowledge if you don't know it. And it's no longer just calling a friend, it's where to get it.
Yes. Now imagine having all that knowledge literally at your fingertips. So if I go in and I'm concerned, this customer, there are certain customers that intimidate me. There are clients that intimidate you. So we go in, they're our opposite type of personality. So we go in, but if I know that there's a bank of information over there that I can access anytime I want to, will I be more confident? And if I'm more confident, will I be more competent? And if I'm more competent, will I be more comfortable? Think about it. When the salesperson seems to be anxious or nervous, then we become anxious and nervous. You know from your presentations, you know from being on the networks, if the speaker is nervous, the audience is nervous. So we learn how to control we're still nervous. If you're not a little bit nervous, you're going to bomb. But we learn how to control that and use confidence. Well, we can do that because of competence. We know that if I don't know the answer right now, I know where to get it in a finger push.
And that is the biggest change, is the concept of, I'm going to ask somebody and get back to you. You are expected. The sense of immediacy has changed so much in our lives.
Yes.
So as we end this wonderful conversation, and I am so grateful for so much of your time, Chuck, for people who came onto this conversation a little later, we're talking about selling post-pandemic, which really means selling in a world that has been altered by technology, right?
Yes.
And people's access to things.
It's just simply amazing what we could do, and better yet, what's coming next.
So a quick summary, which I'm going to ask you to do rather than have me attempt it, a quick summary of anybody who's joined us who says, I am selling a product, I am selling a service. And first of all, you can reach out to Chuck directly. His website is
www.chuckreaves.com or chuckreaves.us. Just recognize we spell Reaves R-E-A-V-E-S rather than R-E-E.
And also there is Chuck Online. Chuck does asynchronous training where you can actually join his training and purchase products online. You've had to accelerate that. Now, you were doing that before any other speaker or trainer was doing it. How have you had to change that? And then a summary, please.
Wow. Online training is on a platform called an LMS, a learning management system. And when I started doing e-learning, which is called now online learning, there were 3, I think, or 6 LMS systems, and they were designed for IBM. They were hugely expensive. So I built a software company and built an LMS. So then I had my own platform. Today, there are over 600 of these. There is no excuse for any organization not having their training online, so that your new hire, so that your existing people can go back and get refresher courses. But that technology has changed immensely. You and I had this conversation the other day. It's hard to pick the LMS that's going to be best for you.
But thinking about even, my clients, let's say a Home Depot, every single associate has now got to be trained to understand the technology, because if you do walk into a store and there's a product that's not available, they have to know how to access it for you online to immediately buy it. So, it's been so helpful listening to you saying you can't be competitive in business today if you don't train your sales force to use technology, because people expect it much more instantly than I'll go and find out. Or even Chuck, an interior designer, we were redoing our kitchen. If somebody's coming to your kitchen, you want to see in a couple of minutes what it would look like.
Yes.
I mean, all of the software allows you to do these things. And what you're saying to people, if you're not taking advantage of it right now, you are losing out. Exactly.
We're looking at painting our kitchen cabinets. So we put a picture of our kitchen into the computer in the paint store, so you can paint your cabinets any way you want to. You know what they didn't do? They didn't have someone in their organization say, here's some hardware suggestions that you could use as well. Here's
selling
some
attachments.
Some
or as
things
we
you
say
could add.
in the fashion business, accessorizing.
Yes. That's why everybody's in sales. Somebody in the company, we all know Post-it notes. Well, Post-it notes came from an R&D guy who was singing in the church choir, and they would tear up pieces of paper on Sundays and put them in to hold where the next song was, and the paper would fly out. He said, we've got some glue down at 3M that won't stick anything to anything hardly. Post-it notes, billions of dollars in Post-it notes, not from a salesperson, not from a product engineer, from somebody singing in the choir. You have no idea how much depth of knowledge there is in your organization. I had a client, my AT&T days, called me I never liked dealing with this guy. He was very mean. Went out to his office. He kicked the door shut. I knew I was in trouble. He handed me a cocktail napkin with a circuit drawn on it. He said, I want you to sell me this. I said, we don't make that. We can't sell that. He said, you can make it. And we looked at it, and yeah, we could make that. He said, I will give you, and what he was willing to pay me was more than a year's quota in one sale, quota in one sale. So I went back to the engineers. I said, can we do this? They said, well, no, it's not in the book. I said, I know it's not in the book, but can we do it? They said, yeah, it's pretty simple. I said, what do we charge for it? And they said, we don't do rates and tariffs. You have to go talk to rates and tariffs. So I went over and talked to the accounting people. They said, it's not in the book. I said, I know it's not in the book. What would it cost? In order to do that, would have cost AT&T just under $100,000. But what he was asking for morphed into caller ID. Now, he was not the only one thinking of that. Customers have ideas that we need to be able to follow. Let's don't handcuff our salespeople and say, you can only sell it in blue when customers are asking for it in green. We need to make sure that everybody in the company is putting their 2 cents worth into every product, every service, and many of the sales. Sorry, didn't mean to get on my soapbox.
No, it's so important, Chuck. You're talking about adaptability. You're talking about innovation. Yes. I have been researching this topic since March of 2020 about what was it going to take for companies, and I said to ramp up and amplify. And everything you're speaking about are the essential things. But where you come in is training people. It's one thing saying this is what people need. It's another thing having you come into an organization and giving you the how, because we've got the why. It's let's have a meeting today. Okay, everyone, we need your ideas. We need to be innovative. It doesn't work like that. We know that ideas build on ideas. So are we creating atmospheres, and are we putting things in place to make that happen?
Whenever two minds come together, a third mind is created. So we can start sharing ideas, and that's where these new products and other innovations are going to come from. We need to involve everyone in the organization in how to make sales better, how to make products better, how to make accounting better. Everyone has ideas. Now, if 1,000 ideas come in and 999 are no good at all, guess what? There was one.
Right. So if I were to say, I've certainly got so much out of this conversation. If you were to say 5 things, and it doesn't need to be 5, Chuck, you can make it 5, 7, or 10. But right now, if you're listening to this conversation going, I need to improve the technology and I need to improve what is at my salespeople's fingertips, what do I need to be doing?
Good. I'm going to give you my deep, dark favorite secret. Whatever, most people use Microsoft Office. Whatever program you use most often or you depend on the most, I have another website. You might want to write this URL down. It's called youtube.com, youtube.com. Go to YouTube and put in the 3 words, tips and tricks, and then put the name of the program for Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Outlook, tips and tricks. Go there at least once a week. Pick up some of these ideas. People have already reinvented the wheel. We don't need to do it again. Go in there and find out what some of these shortcuts are. When I was building that LMS I told you about, I was on the phone one night with one of the original developers of Excel. And he said, there is no one on the planet that knows the full capability of Excel. So first of all, learn what you know. And then dig around on your computer or your other devices and see if there's something else there you might be able to use. They call it bloatware when you buy the computer and it's got a bunch of stuff on it. But before you kick it off, check it out. Number 3, take a salesperson to lunch. I'm a salesperson. Take us to a very nice lunch and just start picking their brain. What is it like out there? It still amazes me how often people say, oh, those salespeople have it made. They come in at the crack of noon, they have a cup of coffee, they take a customer to lunch, then they go play golf. There's a lot more to it than that. And I don't want you to learn a salesperson's life to feel sorry for them or appreciate them. I want you to learn their life to see where you, in your position, can contribute to the sales process in your organization. Everybody has something to do to move sales along. Finally, learn your products and services from your customer's perspective. Learn the products and services from the customer's perspective. Your customer service people are in the best place to do account retention. Customers will tell things to a customer service person they won't tell a salesperson. They will ask things of a customer service person they won't ask a salesperson. We assume the salesperson has a quota or a commission riding on the sale. So of course they're going to say you need to upgrade to 3.0. But if I talk to a customer service person and they say, you know, Chuck, this problem that you're having, we took care of it in the 3.0. When you're ready, why don't you upgrade? It's amazing the different relationships, and I recommend you have at least 3, the different relationships your customers can have in your organization. Who are the 3 people they could contact in your company? And who are the 3 people you're contacting in their organization?
Chuck, when I say this was a master class, or as we say in South African, a master class, it absolutely was. I'm going to make sure that this is on YouTube. If you just joined us, I managed to get a precious nearly 45 minutes of Chuck Reaves' time, which is absolute gold. And I always say to people, you couldn't afford him one-on-one. So how wonderful that we managed to get him for a group. But if you would like Chuck to talk to your sales organization, and I think you just said it, Chuck, how much do you charge? You say, I don't, because I assure you, you will get it back in revenue. So
I get less than the customer gets. They make more profit on what I do than I do.
And it just, you know, so many just nuggets from the conversation today. 2022, Chuck Reaves, R-E-A-V-E-S. Chuck, one thing I have enjoyed about the last 2 years is that I get to have conversations with you like this, because you are living in Arizona and I am living in Atlanta, and we get to have this conversation thanks to technology. And if I got anything from today's session, it's master your technology. And you also said one other thing is that go to YouTube. So for example, go to YouTube and look at, that was such a nugget, anything you're using, look at YouTube. And why I thought that was so amusing is you say to a millennial or younger, do you know how to do this or that or help me? They say, just YouTube it. And you're saying there's a lot out there that, in fact, organizations are not taking advantage of.
Yes.
So as much as technology is our friend, I do hope I get to see you in person at some point. Chuck Reaves, REAVES.com. Thank you so much, Chuck, for your precious, precious time.
Thank you, Nadia. So good.